my wife is an educator, and we just want to know what we can do to help out with the CSCOPE, the issues with CSCOPE here recently.
Yeah, David was in for yesterday's show. David Barton is with us. We were talking about CSCOPE, and it is a truly frightening scene. Best thing you can do, I think, is educate yourself on what it is. But as a teacher, I'm going to let David answer on the teacher thing. As a parent, get your kids out of public school. Get your kids, get your grandkids, get them out of the public school system. Pat is working on some things himself for, quite honestly, our family, and also we'll hopefully be able to reveal some of these things through the American Dream Labs this summer. But start connecting with like-minded people and parents, and do not let another day go by with your kids being indoctrinated. As far as teachers, David, what can they do?
A couple of things. If you're in a smaller district, it's going to be easier to work with. If you're a larger district that has curriculum directors, you got to work through a curriculum director. So when you find things you don't like, things are wrong, you have to go say, no, wait a minute, look at this. This is what it's teaching, but we know this over here. So you have to do some preparation work to be able to get your superintendent or whoever to go along with you. But you have plenty of latitude in the classroom. Sometimes administrators don't like that. You ought to teach the kids what's right, period, straight out. And it's not going to be in CSCOPE in a lot of ways.
We also have, at least in the state of Texas, we have people like Senator Dan Patrick who are on it.
That's right.
Understand it, and are not going to let it stand.
That's right.
I mean, I just had this, I think it was kind of a mini revelation here recently. I asked Pat if he remembered the first time we talked about ever moving to Texas. And this was how long ago, Pat?
A couple of years, 3 years?
3 years, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it stemmed from a story that we read about how education was being twisted in Texas. And it was about the Alamo. You weren't allowed in one district, you couldn't teach it, you couldn't teach the Alamo because it was oppression. And I said on the air, I said, we cannot lose Texas. If we lose the education in Texas, we lose the entire country. It's over. And I said on the air, I'll move to Texas if I have to. We're going to stop that slide. We have to. And as this CSCOPE thing started to come up, and I don't remember what it was, just a couple of weeks ago, I said to Pat, I said, oh my gosh.
That's it.
This may be why we're here. Maybe not for anything else other than hold the ground in Texas. Just hold the ground.
Glenn, let me add one more thing to that as well, because in every state you're going to have State Board of Education members. In Texas, we elect them. Our State Board of Education is twice the size of a congressional district, and we still consider that a down-ballot race. Nobody knows who their State Board members are. The reason we have been able to prevail in Texas is for several years we've been really working at getting good-minded, constitutional, God-fearing people in office. Every state needs to focus on their State Board of Education, not just local boards, but state boards, because they'll be the ones making the call in this in every state.
Great.
Thank you. For far too long, I think we've concentrated on national races, senatorial races, maybe some U.S. congressional races, and we forget how important those school board elections are. We forget how important the local elections are, and they're the ones that affect us the most. And so we got to come to grips with that again. And Diane Lockridge, who's on the set here somewhere, where are you, Diane? She's got a nice follow-up to this. Hi, great
Diane.
question about CSCOPE.
About CSCOPE, yes.
Actually wrote it down.
My question is,
prepared.
I don't think I have it down here, but I think it was, we know that CSCOPE is part of the Texas environment.
Right.
Is it going by a different name in other states?
David, can you answer that?
Yes, it does, and every state has their own name for it. Now, a lot of it is found in what we call Common Core, which is a national attempt to impose standards on everybody. But that's the biggest generic name. But state by state, this stuff is in every single state.
Okay. That's the key here, is that's what the administration is pushing, is Common Core. And they have reached out to CSCOPE, and CSCOPE said, no, we don't want to be a part of your Common Core. But they're doing it anyway. The administration, correct me if I'm wrong, the administration is using all of this stuff, and it is going to all 50 states in the next 12 to 24 months, right?
That's where it's headed. There's been about 3 states so far who have backed out and said, we don't want to be part of this, we're not going to be part of Common Core. They're having that fight right now today in Oklahoma, whether they will be or won't be.
You have to back out.
It's got to be backed out.
You've got to get out of Common Core.
And the other really fun thing about Common Core is they're tailoring, right now, they're starting to tailor the ACT and the SAT to the Common Core curriculum so that the only way your kids are going to get into college is to know the Common Core.
And that is fine with me.
That's it.
If my kids are rejected for all colleges, I will be so happy. I don't want them.
But there's an awful lot of people who still want their kids in college.
Yeah,
at least to try to find a conservative college.
I would beg you, America, to look at the people who are successful in this country and notice that Steve Jobs, that Bill Gates, a lot of them. I never went to college. George Washington, Ben Franklin, but I mean current people. Michael Dell is another one. Did not go to college, and if they did,
they dropped out early.
Right. They all felt that was oppressive, or they couldn't afford it. And I believe sincerely that led to their success because they were no longer thinking exactly the way they were taught to think. We're being taught not how to use our brain and how to think. We're being taught what to think, and that's why we're not coming up with any answers. Americans have always been known for their ingenuity. Our universities and our college systems and our educational from K through 12 is killing our ingenuity, and it's got to be stopped. Don't be afraid to let go of college.
Where's Cheryl DeWitt, who has a really good contemporary question about something that was going on?
Let me just follow that up with another one. Is the guy who started Whole Foods. And when I say let go of college, that doesn't mean let go of your education. He's a great example. He educated himself, and he did it all himself. So it's not let go of education, it's let go of the system.
Well, Thomas Jefferson was one of the greatest minds in history, and he did it himself.
George Wythe University in Utah is a great example, and they can't get into nobody will accredit George Wythe University. And I just sat, I remember distinctly, they gave me an award, and I had to go do a fundraiser award thing for them one night. The night before, I had been sitting at a table with some of the country's greatest leaders. The president was in the room, and all of these leaders were sitting around this table, and I'm listening to them, and it's all just nothing but BS. The next day, I am with freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors from George Wythe University. The intelligence level and the conversation that we had that night at the table was 1,000% smarter than what I had with all the leaders of the country. You can think out of the box, and there are this is a completely radical different way to educate your mind and your kids, and it is all based on George Wythe, who was the one who told Thomas Jefferson, this is how you do it. And none of the universities will accredit these guys. None of them will. They'll all say, no, sorry, your credits are no good here, except when they try to go and get a doctorate, they are scoring so far above everybody else that they're accepting them anyway. They're accepting them to Princeton and to Yale and to Harvard anyway. Why they'd want to go and waste their money there is beyond me, but they're doing it.